Hi, everyone. Everybody loves a story of an underdog because it's an embodiment of hope and positivity. For most of us, we dream big things, but we really, really fear taking that first step, especially going against odds because we think we're not meant to. But one person who went against odd and came out successfully in the most heroic way or in the unicorn way is Open Financial Technologies. And I have the founder, Mabel, with me today talking about the strategies of an underdog. Thank you so much for joining me today, Mabel.
Thank you for having me, Shalini. It's been wonderful, having this interaction with you, and I really look forward to what all we can speak about and share.
I'm sure you have lots to contribute today. So let me start right off the bat. So when you started building the concept of neobank itself, right, you were really probably ahead of your times, but you guys made it look so easy, and the acceptability of a neobank itself came in so easy. But I understand it is not easy at all, right? There is market education, there is investor education, there's customer education, there is so much that you guys had to do because everything was probably going against what you were trying to build. So what I'm trying to understand here is that, when you're trying to win against odds, right? I mean, this is clearly a story of an underdog for me. What did you guys tell yourselves? Did you guys have a strategy, or like a model on how you're going to go crack this?
I would say somewhere it was deep rooted into our experience as entrepreneurs. We've done, at least Anish and I have done four other fintechs together. I have done five. He has done seven overall startups. And being ahead of time was not something new to us because everything we did before this was way ahead of its time. I started out doing biometric payments in 2006 when there was no Aadhaar biometric data or even biometric readers available in the Indian market. Thereon with Anish, when I joined forces, it became near sound data transfer. It was a technology that existed before NFC came in. We tried our hand at NFC, failed miserably because that was way too early, 2009-10, when we were trying to do NFC based payments in India. So it's been, and even the payment gateway we built, which was almost like Stripe in the US, but made for the Indian market, where mobile apps were coming in, and the payment interface between mobile app and how the payment interface looks on a mobile app could be controlled by the developers when they were coding the app itself. So we were kind of the first to even have the technology readiness in the Indian market for that. But again, we were like 6 7 months ahead of our time, probably, and we burnt out. And so this time around, at least when we started to identify what's the problem that we wanted to solve that was a problem of today, and secondly, a problem that had a mass appeal. A lot of time that I spent post the acquisition of my earlier startup by Citrus Pay, where I was handling marketing for them through community evangelism sessions that I used to do over the weekends. I got to interact with a lot of father fellow entrepreneurs and found out that the problems that I used to face as an entrepreneur in running bank account and accounting were two different things, and there's an ocean of difference between the two things. And for someone who's not a finance person, not a tech person, getting the two together is a Herculean task. And a lot of my productive time of doing startups used to go in just managing all of these and knowing what my expenses are or what my runway looks like. So as I interacted with more startup founders like myself, I realized that this is a problem that everyone was facing. Talking to SMEs made me realize that this is not a problem that just startup founders were facing, but even the so-called sorted traditional businesses were also having these kind of challenges. And we that's how we went around identifying what the problem was. And of course, yes, I went through everything that you spoke about, which is on how do I we decided to take the neo banking approach to solve the problem, but at a time when no one knew what neo banking was in India, right? And there is the investor education that you have to do. There is the customer education that you have to do. So trying to leverage as much of content. Those were also not times where we were heavily funded for having a proper marketing strategy or a PR strategy per se. So trying to do $0 marketing of in whichever way possible, through discussion forums, through blogs, some of those things to see it because there are only so many questions that you can find around neo banking when you look for, and when content is not already available, you need to start seeding content in order to get conversations going. So yeah, heavily using LinkedIn to spread the word, making market research reports, reaching out to banking partners, leveraging some of those conversations in driving engagement, making the effort to put out a lot of information around neobanking as a whole itself, so that investor interest would also come up in the segment. So apart from all of that, somewhere the fact that we were solving a problem that had a mass appeal, that had that touched so many wide range of businesses. It's not that I'm solving something only for the manufacturing segment or only for the say retail segment. It's something that cuts across
I think
different stratas of small businesses.
but
Yes,
collecting
ma'am.
that information was very crucial for you guys to start open. Did you go through a lot of these market study and research? Of course, the pain point is one, right? People's willingness to pay for it. Will they be open to this? Will it easily integrate with their existing data and so on? Did you guys do all of this research before you actually went on to build the product itself?
I wouldn't say completely, because if I wait for all of that research to happen, then Open would have just got started right now. And also, I don't heavily bet on just, at least it's a learning for me personally from the time I was doing NFC payments. We built the entire premise at that time because there were all these big research groups that had published how NFC is going to be the future of contactless payments and all of it. Right. So we had built an entire premise of a startup just basis research reports at that time. So this time around, we were a little more cautious. But obviously, yes, doing that, having the knowledge that this is something that solves for the masses, and then own experiences and own conversations that we would have with fellow entrepreneurs, is a lot of things that we relied on. And a lot of focus, even once we so you don't always build when you start to build a new bank, you don't build the entire of the platform. So you first identify one bit that you want to build, you build that, put it out into life, see how the users are. By then you would have created a wait list, so release it out to say 100 people, see how they interact with it, what's the feedback, listen to the user, put back that feedback into action, and then build further depending on and somewhere this is a philosophy that most of Y combinators have, that build things people want. So you'll never fail if you do follow that strategy as a whole.
Right, right. I think one is definitely, you guys are very, very high conviction entrepreneurs, right? And I think a lot of that also comes from this deep insight and the single focus that you had when you began, right? And of course, now, of course, Open has become much bigger. But I think that the deep insight is what's very useful because, as an investor today, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and also as well as funds, right? So a couple of things that are missing. So one is, the investor mindset. Oh, I've never heard of this concept. What is this new thing? It's not clicked in the West yet. So why will Indians adapt to something like this, right? And so that was a big game changer itself for me. For what you guys did, right? I mean, so ahead of your times, and you were able to pull it off, right? I think you got the market timing itself right. I don't, yeah, 6 7 months is okay, I guess, but you were bang on there, which is very important for an investor as well as an entrepreneur to know that there is a need for something like this. Um, so so let's rewind this a bit more, right? So when you were building this very early on, although you guys had a high conviction and deep insight into the space, how easy was it to build a team to come together to imagine this product?
I would say that when at least the initial few folks who worked in Open, at least maybe the first 15, 16 employees were folks whom we have worked with at different parts of our journey before. So they already knew what kind of entrepreneurs they were working for, or what kind of a team, the very early startup team that was there. Most of them had had some experience of having worked with each other before. I still remember when I first interviewed, the first person whom I hired, not from my network, was my content head, Devika, and she took a rookie bet on us because I didn't even have an office to call her to for doing an interview. I met her at a Starbucks for a interview for that matter. So it was a bet for her, but it was definitely a bold bet because she was otherwise coming in from a very structured organization into a a group of probably friends at that point of time who all knew each other. So she was this new girl, new kid on the block, and but slowly, gradually, we realized that listen, we all are comfortable. She also needs to be comfortable with us. So that got us thinking that we can't always build a company out of our own network. So if we have to build an organization, what kind of organization do we want to build? So Open, as much as it's known for being a fintech startup, Open is also known for the kind of culture or work culture that we build, and we've put structured ways in which defining. So the culture is not something that Anish and Mabel or Dina and Ajish have decided, right? It's something that everyone got together, brainstormed, and decided that this is what we want our company to look like. The entire team at that time, when we started, we did a very structured exercise around what kind of an organization that should Open be when we were around 30, 35 folks. And it was a little bit of everyone's ideas that helped us define what the culture of Open should be. And it would be really boring to have a company called Open with a very completely shut down culture, right? So, and then we started putting, as we grew, we started having our own culture handles that speaks about, what happens on the
Yeah.
floor. People can see it for themselves. What kind of people work around here, what happens on the floor of Open as well, right? So those things, eventually came as part of our growth as we grew.
I think I think a lot of people miss out on the culture piece. I think it's something that they think, Acha, when I become 100 people company or when I have a massive team of HR, I'll think of culture then, right? And I think a lot of founders as well as startups miss out, especially in the early stage, that people ultimately join the founders and the culture for the culture of the organization itself than for the pay and whatever else, right? I think a lot of founders miss out on this key aspect. So
Marketing itself is something that is always parked for when I have funding later. But there are so many things you can do even when you're bootstrapped to build, how much effort does it have to, create another Instagram handle and have things, consistently posting out there saying how is it that you're brainstorming. And a lot of these things in hindsight you'll realize that all of this played into the playbook of you getting good team members or people who wanted to work in this manner. Employer branding exercise itself, it was more around, we want to just showcase what being an opener, as we call ourselves, is. And there's also a saying that goes around in the team that once an opener, always an opener. It's something like, something transforms in you, something changes in you, and then you just are that person for the rest of your life. So that kind of an environment. And once we started putting it out on Instagram, automatically a lot of when people want to join you, they'll look around everywhere. So once they see these kind of things, they have even more conviction that there's a place that they want to join.
yeah, yeah. I think you're right in the sense that irrespective of you trying to do marketing or build the culture or whatever little that it is that you want to do for your employees, you don't need millions of dollars in the back. It needs the night process and of course the thought process to think about this and execute, right? And I think one of the reasons why I think and despite being an underdog and doing things your own way is, I think, of course, your tenacity and perseverance. The other thing I would say is looking at all these finer details, which is very important, like organization, culture, and your ability to attract the right people and having the right thought process for it, which becomes very important. So tell me, Mabel, you've been around this ecosystem, right? And I'm sure you've seen so many thousands of entrepreneurs. Now there are a lot of people who are afraid to try something which is very disruptive or very different from what's actually out there in the market. They're like, nay, nay, I won't get funding. Oh, I don't think I can do this. This is too much work. There's so much of market education, etc. Right? There's so many people who shy away from it, and also the fact that they may not even get funded, so they don't even start. which is actually very annoying if you think of it as an entrepreneur, because you need to be built there for the, love of building, and for the love of solving a problem itself, and not worry about VC funding and all of that, right? So what is your message to all these guys who are shying away from exploring an uncharted territory?
See, it's all about what your conviction is at the end of the day. If you are convinced that what you are solving for, what you're building, has a good amount of potential, and then you've done a little bit of research on, back history on what premise you're building, and you put things into use, and you're constantly listening to the user, there are not many chances where you would go drastically wrong from what your conviction is. So first, having the conviction is really important, because if you don't have conviction in what you're building, then it's so much that you can do about it. So that is the first thing. And then once you feel that, this is something that I strongly feel about, that I should be doing something about it, go for it. If you don't go for it, who else will go for it, right? Why do you want to always listen to that devil's advocate who's playing in your head? Uh, Chances are you will try something. Once you put it into action, you will know which way things are going. You either ways, it is a lesson, whether it succeeded or whether it failed. I would say that I learned my biggest lessons in all the downfalls and the failures that I have faced before. And those taught me some very important lessons in life. And not just, doesn't everything have to come into B school kind of, learning, but also it somewhere changes you as a person. And even if you fail as an entrepreneur, there's a lot of importance you would get compared to someone else who has just been, playing a role of an employee in some other organization. Because as an entrepreneur, you would have thought about strategy, you would have thought about branding, you would have thought about how to sell, how to market, how do you build, how do you productize. That's not something that everyone comes out with. So any day, even if you fail and you have to revert into a full-time job, you become a more worthy employee to have in any organization than anyone else who would have come in, right? So don't be shying away from the fear of failure, because every failure, as they say, is the stepping stone to success in some way or the other.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's very true, and I think a lot of us also make the mistake of thinking that failure is the opposite of success, and nobody understands that, it is the
No,
path to your
it's the
successful
path
journey.
to success, not opposites of success. It is the path to success.
Yeah, yeah. So,
And it's very
so
easy to move. Most folks who are listening will say that, yeah, now it's very easy to say, but when you're failing, when you have that guy chasing you for money, or when you have pledged someone's gold and from the family, and you need to now get it back because that person is getting married, in that time, to think that this is my stepping stone to success is not going to play any part in offering any consolation. But
yeah.
at the end, as long as you're doing things with the right intent, things will not land you into situations where it's not that you will not be able to turn around in any way or the other.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree, right? I mean, I think it's not like, so we all always talk about our success and we celebrate success, right? And you may look like the most
We should celebrate our failures as well.
Yes, exactly. And I think all of us have had our share of failures, right? I'm sure you've had your share of failures, right? And of course, people
Oh,
today probably
yes.
are talking about your success. But I think probably why you're successful is because you had a series of failures, right? Because you know what not to do, and you've toughened up, and you've figured this out. And if you had success the first go, it's not like everything will just come and fall on your platter every single second time or third time, right? I mean, so you got to work for it. And but yeah, I think failure is definitely path to your successful journey. So now I want to just ask my last question to you, Mabel. You generally, when you talk about startups itself, right, we talk about, oh, how women are struggling and are underdogs, and then we talk about women in fintech, where they say, oh, we need more women in fintech, and not just in startups, right? Even if you talk about banking, traditional banking, and so on, right, we talk about more women in leadership and how difficult it is, right? So there is a lot of things going against women in fintech itself, right? And despite that, I think there are a lot of aspiring women looking to either start up or looking at leadership roles of working in a fintech startup. So So tell me, how did you like think about this when you were like, did was this something even in your mind that, oh, I'm a woman in fintech and I need to be very different about this, or is there any message for women out there from you?
Well, I wouldn't say, well, all of you, whatever you said is pretty much real. At least I have not had the struggle of being a woman founder. Or at least I had consolation in Dina being there with me as another co-founder. So we were like two women and two men in the co-founding team, at least in the journey of Open. When I started out as a woman entrepreneur, yes, it was a very tough task, and I started out in Gujarat. So that time, even for doing basic user surveys when I used to go into the field, and I was working in rural Gujarat for financial inclusion. Most of the men folk used to just refuse to talk to me, and it would always be the villagers, the women in the villages who used to even agree to give me biometric samples for authenticating whether my reader is working correctly or not. So I have had my fair share of struggles as a woman entrepreneur back then. Yeah, when I and Anish and I got together, and we were not married at that point of time. We've done two startups together as co-founders, and everyone used to ask me, "What if you get married to Anish? What will happen?" When I did switch, we were both married to each other, and people will be like, "Arey, you're couple entrepreneurs. What if you get divorced?" And naysayers would always be there, and it's only about whether you really want to focus on that, or do you want to focus on proving to the world that you can do it as much as anyone else can do it, and be gender neutral, as much gender neutral in your thought process. Definitely, women entrepreneurs do have a lot of things to deal with, because apart from whatever happens in the startup or uh, in your company, there is a full family also that you carry along, right? So definitely it is two times more the work than most others. But at the same time, my message to other women entrepreneurs would be like, women tend to be a little bit critical about their own capabilities. We like, can I do it? Am I the right person to do it? Well, it would help if you just put up blinders. Don't look at those kind of questions. Don't let yourself discourage yourself. You can be your biggest champ. Have conviction in whatever you're feeling is the right approach. And as women, we are blessed with sixth sense, and we never go wrong on that. So have conviction on that, and just keep moving forward. And don't get stuck with things like, will I be able to pull it off or not, or what if I fail? There will always be another way around for you.
Thanks, Mabel. I mean, you're right. I think it's all in the mind, and I think what you tell yourself, the stories that we tell ourselves matters, and I think because that shapes our behavior and our decision making and so on. So
Yeah.
it all starts with the mind. Thank you so much, Mabel. You've been really an inspiration to me, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there who are. Fighting against the whirlwinds and the tailwinds and so on. And I'm sure that you're inspiring them in your own way to take that step forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you.